It's always just between us, all right?
Great to have you on Between Us and 938 Live. I'm Angela Lim, and it's always you're tuned to the program where we're sharing inspiring stories and also the work that people do here in Singapore, the work of our everyday heroes. Now, speaking of which, three of my guests are in the studio today to share a bit more about the work that they're doing. Bertrand Wee is from 50 for 50, which is a youth-led charity initiative that identifies youth changemakers to raise funds for charities here in Singapore. Gerald Tay is the said changemaker. He's going to tell us a bit more about his chosen charity today, which is St. Andrew's Cathedral Home for the Aged. Now, Pearl Sim is a representative from the Inn. She's going to tell us a bit more about the work that you do there as well. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi. Let's start a bit with Bertrand, because the whole idea of 50 for 50 is that young people are encouraged to get involved with local charities. Yourself, you're based in Hong Kong and you're actually participating from there. Tell us a bit more about how you got started.
Well, the person that started it actually was Rebecca Lin. She's a co-head, is a president of 50 for 50. She's a really good friend, and every time I come back from Hong Kong, we always have catch-up sessions, coffee, and we always are thinking of ways, of interesting and fun ways to give back. So this was one of the programs that we thought of, and it took us actually 6 months to think about an interesting way to give back to society, and finally it came to fruition. Yeah.
I guess in a way, it's a very interesting concept. I mean, we've explored this in the previous episodes as well, but just to refresh the memory, the amount of funds that are being collected from the 50 changemakers and their respective causes actually will be multiplied by 4, basically,
yes.
at the end of the year.
That's right. So, for example, Gerald, if you raise $1 today, that will be matched by a corporate that the 50 for 50 team would bring in. So there'll be $2 altogether, and that $2 will be matched by the community chest through their Care and Share program. So Gerald's $1 will eventually be $4 going to the St. Andrew's Cathedral.
Of course, you mentioned that there are 50 changemakers, and some might say that nowadays the young people are not very concerned about what's happening or who is left behind in society. Was it difficult getting the changemakers to come forward?
It actually was not, because these were close friends and family also, and I guess they felt obliged. We saboed some of them. Gerald, you got saboed, right? Didn't you get saboed?
Let's hear from Gerald then. I mean, how did you get roped in?
Actually, how I got roped in is actually Rebecca came to my office, and because we do corporate services, we actually held the structure for the social collaboration, which is behind 50 for 50. And at that point, she asked me, do you want to come on and be one of the changemakers? I said no. Because I felt that I was too busy at the point in time, and I was like, okay, never mind. A few weeks later, I was at an event, and I bumped into her dad. And her dad was like, hey, you should totally come on board and join this thing. I was like, okay, this is some divine power trying to tell me that, I probably have to do something to give back to society.
This is really interesting, because you have on one hand Bertrand, who's someone who is thinking, I want to spearhead something, and then you have people who actually, if you think about it, when encouraged by loved ones and when encouraged by people you care about, actually don't mind doing some work with these charities. Now, Gerald, tell us why you chose the St. Andrew's Cathedral Home for the Aged.
Right, actually, if people who know me, I'm not actually very new to charity because of my father, who has been very active with the YMCA, with the Boys Brigade, with NUS and stuff like that. And actually, I've been thinking a lot about how to give back to society, but there are only 2 types of people that I feel that really need the help, and that's the destitute elderly and the orphans. Because if we look at Maslow's hierarchy, we were talking about these very scientific things just now. That actually the thing that people really need at the base of it is actually food and shelter, and these 2 categories of people actually really do need the help. And I am very supportive of people who actually want to come on board and help. Right. Myself included.
Sounds good. I mean, how did you even hear about the home? Because, there are many homes in Singapore.
Well, we really have to thank 50 for 50 for that, because they actually compiled an entire list of good IPCs, which is Institutes of Public Character. A whole list of 150 of them for the 50 changemakers to actually choose. And they actually highlighted those that were furthest away from
achieving their goal for the end of the year.
And it made it very targeted and very easy for us to choose what cause did what and how far they were away from their targets.
I mean, that's a great effort, though, because we're thinking that as far as possible, charities that don't get a lot of exposure and they don't get a lot of chances to kind of publicize their cause, this would be a perfect opportunity. Reaching out to young people, Gerald, do you find that your friends or people that supported you really cared about it, and were they supportive of you?
They try to be, but the thing is, the funny part about it is that a lot of things go wrong on social media nowadays, and when you post something on Facebook and people like it, but somehow it doesn't convert into a donation in some way, and it's just pretty interesting that more Gen X people are giving than Gen Y people are giving.
Interesting.
Which is not that interesting if you think about it, but it's a lack in our giving in our society, I feel.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I guess, Bertrand, you might also have some insight based on the feedback from the other changemakers. The fact that maybe, a lot of it is about awareness sometimes, that even if the money doesn't come in yet, there's maybe some voice that you're giving to these charities as well.
That's right. Actually, I'm kind of encouraged that at least the stuff that we post, the stuff that we do on social media and on the newspapers are actually getting traction in terms of awareness, and people actually know that we are actually doing something to help in some way, which is great. I mean, Bertrand is...
I mean, awareness is definitely getting out there, but in terms of getting the Gen Y to contribute, we're still trying to push as much as possible for them to contribute.
We're going to hear a bit more as well about the efforts there behind all this. I mean, not just what Gerald is doing to raise the funds, but also what the rest of the changemakers might be doing. We'll hear from Bertrand as well. But coming up, we're going to hear from Pearl, who is a representative from St. Andrew's Cathedral Home for the Aged. She's going to tell us a bit more about the stories of those who live there and how they're being taken care of by the lovely staff there. We're going to hear more in just a bit on Between Us. Stay tuned.
Reset your relationships in Between Us. Our soulful encounter is always just between us on 938 Live.
Chatting today all about 50 for 50 youth-led charity initiative that identifies youth changemakers to raise funds for charities here in Singapore. Bertrand Wee is a representative from 50 for 50. Gerald Tay is a changemaker who's supporting the St. Andrew's Cathedral Home for the Aged. We're going to hear now from Pearl, who's going to tell us a bit more about the home. Pearl, who are these people that, the St. Andrew's Cathedral Home are supporting, and what kind of work do you guys do?
Well, we have about 24 ladies in the home. The home is full now, so it's not a very large home. And the ladies who come to the home, we have a portion who are those who you would regard destitute. They have no relatives, they have no income. They get some money from the government for that, and the rest is supported by the home. For the others, they may have some relatives, they may have some income, but usually not enough to be able to pay wholly for the phone.
Right.
So they pay a little contribution to the home, depending on their financial situation.
Right.
And then the home will fund them for the rest of their expenses there.
How do they come to know about the home? I mean, how do they get referred to you guys by certain organizations?
They can be referred sometimes through the social workers in the hospitals, sometimes through contacts through the church or churches in the Anglican community, and then sometimes it's just through people that they know, and then they'll phone us or they'll write to us to see whether and then we'll interview them to see if we have a place, and we will place them according to their needs.
Right. Tell us about some of the people that do come forward to the home. I mean, are they usually lack of food? Is there certain challenges with regard to dealing with healthcare? What kind of conditions do they face?
Well, the home is what we call a Category A home, so you have to be ambulant to be in the home. It's not a nursing home.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the category of people that we serve, and mostly the problem is that if they do have relatives, then the relatives find it very difficult to take care of them. They could be working, the children could be at school, there's nobody to take care of them during the day. And even if they come back at night, sometimes it's late at night, so the person is left alone a lot during the day.
Right.
So it could be different kinds of situations, but very often on that theme where there's nobody to look after them, there's no company for them.
Right.
Yeah.
In terms of, the people who work there, is it on a volunteer basis? You do have regular staff who are supporting and taking care of the aged, right?
Yes, we do. We have a supervisor in the home, we have 3 nursing aides, and we have a cook. So those are the paid staff. And then the management is done all by volunteers.
Right, that's wonderful. I'm going to hear a bit more about the challenges that you're facing as well, a little bit more also about, what's being done, what Gerald's doing right now to raise the funds that will actually be multiplied by 4 by the end of the year as part of the 50 for 50, which is the youth-led charity initiative identifying youth changemakers to raise funds for lesser-known charities here in Singapore. This conversation will continue in just a bit. Stay tuned here on Between Us on 938 Live.
Man is a knot into which relationships are tied, but nothing comes between us. On 938 Live. It's always just between us, all right?
Thanks for staying tuned to Between Us and 938 Live. We're sharing the stories today of those from St. Andrew's Cathedral Home for the Aged. They're supporting this cause. Changemaker supporting St. Andrew's Cathedral Home is Gerald Tay. Also, all this under the 50 for 50, which is a youth-led charity initiative that identifies youth changemakers to raise funds for lesser-known charities here in Singapore. Now, earlier, Paul, you were talking a bit more about, some of the work that the volunteers and the staff there do to help kind of the destitute elderly or those who need help, even with basic necessities sometimes, like food. What are some of the main challenges you guys are facing right now in terms of what you need?
The main challenge for the residents is to have somebody come in to volunteers, not only to entertain. We don't really want entertainment for the residents. We want volunteers to engage the residents to either physically in some kind of exercise or mentally, even if it's just bingo or some handicraft work. And, ladies need a little bit of encouragement. So if you just show them what to do, they won't get engaged. So you have to encourage them, you have to show them, you have to bring them in. And then if you give little bits of rewards, tiny little rewards, they are so happy and they suddenly all want to get into doing the things.
It's so lovely, especially that, this is a kind of a youth outreach thing that we're doing right now, because it's so great to have, the seniors and young people interact. There's so much that both can learn from each other. Do you have young volunteers coming in quite a bit?
We do have schools. They have perhaps they're part of a club activity or extramural activity, so they come in. And mostly when they come in from the schools, they tend just to interact or to sing. And I think perhaps the schools can be much more active in terms of guidance as to what they can do with the residents in the home and really engage them. Part of the problem is also that some of the residents speak English, some Mandarin, but some of them are dialect speaking. So for the school kids, it's a bit difficult to engage in conversation when they don't speak dialect.
And all this isn't really very difficult sometimes. Many of us do speak some form of dialect and English, Mandarin as well. So just talking to them, just being with them is actually quite helpful already.
It's quite helpful, but I think sometimes the school children are quite shy as well. They find it very difficult to break into, to start talking even to the residents.
So if you're friendly, energetic, and very
so I think it's a good that if they come in regularly, they learn how to interact as well.
It's also about building a relationship with some of the people there, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It's great to see a familiar face come in.
And if they come in regularly, the residents recognize them, and they will mention it, and I think that cheers the heart of the person to know that they're being recognized.
Definitely. We're going to hear more about what Gerald's doing now, because you have to raise some funds for this. Has it been challenging? You mentioned that people are supportive in general in terms of clicking the like button, but how's it been in terms of raising funds?
Yeah, actually we've been spreading the word around on social media and stuff like that, but also we have been we did an event at Walla Walla's a few weeks ago where Bex, I and Sean had a little sing-off kind of thing, and we actually did raise some money for charity.
Was it because you guys sang really well, or the other way around?
They were being nice, and because we were embarrassed ourselves,
they gave us
pity
donation.
Right? Was it because they had to drink so they come here?
Oh yes, that's true, right? But Walla Walla's was also very nice in giving 20% of the proceeds that night to the cause. It sounds like all these activities are pretty fun. It's not something that youth won't enjoy. I guess people are supportive because it's something they can do really easily, much like talking to the seniors at the home as well. What are some of your plans to raise more money? Has it been difficult? How much are you at right now? I'm at kind of like, including my corporate sponsorships, that I've raised around 20 over 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but we're still far from where we're supposed to be. But the thing is that that's why I'm going to hold another event on the 10th of January through friends, and we're actually holding a movie screening of Ping Pong, which is very interesting because it's a documentary about 8 very old people with 703 years in between them, and they take part in this international ping pong competition.
Wow.
And to keep alive. So basically it also tells the young people that, you know, if these old people could still be so active at their age, what are you actually doing when you're younger? And that's actually a screening, but I do admit that the movie is slightly slow moving, so we will have some fringe activities along with that, and also a dinner after that.
Wow, okay.
For a small gift of $20 will suffice. And we'll see how to move it along the way. We do want young people to come in. We don't want them to think like, oh, you know, it's so expensive just to come to something like $100, $200. And a lot of them are still building their careers, their families. It's quite difficult for them sometimes to fork out that large amount of money.
But Gerald, you don't have to worry too much about the fundraising of the money, because I think the whole 50 for 50 platform is really to get the awareness out there. The fact that we are here to talk about St. Andrew's Cathedral, I think it's a big step already. I think it's a huge achievement for us. Yeah,
and that's why I want this to also hit the masses instead of just like going door to door and getting like big ticket donations when we don't even get seen out there with like limited visibility about the cause.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, even as listeners driving home right now thinking, like, you know, I've been wanting to give back in some way, and you know, not necessarily monetarily, but maybe on Sunday or Saturday this week, you know, I can just go down, get to know some of the seniors there.
Be good.
Bring their families, perhaps. You know, I think it's great that you guys mentioned being pulled in, Gerald. You're raising more than $20,000 for charity just because someone roped you in. Imagine the power of peer influence when it comes to these things. We're going to hear a bit more about what else they need in terms of the 50 for 50 youth-led charity initiative, a little bit more about how you can help, and also what you can do to support the St. Andrew's Cathedral Home for the Aged. Chatting today with Bertrand Wee, Gerald Tay, and Pearl Sim. This conversation continues in a moment.
Reset your relationships in Between Us. Our soulful encounter is always just between us on 938 Live.
Moving to our final segment here on Between Us in 938 Live, hearing from Bertrand Wee from 50 for 50, a youth-led charity initiative, the changemaker of the day, Gerald Tay, and also coming from St. Andrew's Cathedral Home for the Aged, Pearl Sim has been telling us a bit more about what the home does. And let's talk a bit to Bertrand now. I guess you guys are still, you know, looking for more support because there is sort of a deadline. The 31st December is actually the deadline. Tell us a bit more about what you guys are still looking for.
Yeah, in terms of getting the changemakers on board the past few months, we have done a very successful job. But getting the corporates on board in such a short period of time has been very, very difficult for us. So in terms of matching all the changemakers, I think we have matched about 70% of them. The last 30% we're really trying to push through. So if you're on the way home and you're part of a corporate that has extra funds that could go to a charity or part of the CSR efforts in your company, log on to our website and look at the different causes and different change makers that you think your company could support, and drop us a line. So our website is 50for50.sg.
And I mean, the wonderful thing as well is that whatever money that you guys do, you know, get from the corporate sponsors, it would go to charities that normally don't get a lot of coverage. So, you know, that on top of that, you know, it's extra meaningful as well. Let's talk a bit, I guess, other events that are coming up. Are there any? I mean, there are 49 other change makers that you guys have singled up. Tell us a bit more.
There's an upcoming event this Thursday that one of our change makers, Alex Fang, is organizing. He's organizing it for Minds, and it's going to be held at the Cathay Cine Leisure, where he booked out the cinema, and he's going to have friends and family come, and he's going to talk about Minds, which is the movement for the intellectually disabled. This Friday, we're going to have Daniel and Belinda. They're organizing a dinner at Suburbia for Singapore Association of the Deaf, and also All Saints Home. On the 20th, we're having Dia and Carrie's Christmas Jingle Show at the Habitat Coffee for the Autism Association and Singapore Association of Mental Health. So all these upcoming exciting events are on the website, so please log on and please try and attend the events, and if you are feeling generous this Christmas season, part of some money and contribute to their cause.
Sounds good. And of course, Paul, you know, anything you'd like to say in terms of what the home itself really needs, apart from what these people as part of 50 for 50 are doing?
Oh, yeah, I think it's a wonderful work that 1550 are doing. So I like volunteers to come into the home, especially families with young children. I think this would really cheer the residents up to be able to interact with young children.
Right. People always think that, when you come forward to volunteer, you're helping those, who need the help. But really, it's two-way, because as a family, you're really teaching amazing values. You're bonding together as well. So that's really great. On a final note, Gerald, anything you'd like to say, for people who don't know very much about the challenges seniors face, and if they want to come forward, how can they support you?
They can call me.
Ladies.
But everything's very transparent on social media. I mean, the 5450 has been out there, and I think that we've got quite a lot of coverage. And people actually do know about the cause, but a lot of them don't exactly know what it's about. So perhaps, through all the Changemakers pages, if they could just take some time to actually read up on what the cause has written, it's actually very useful, and they actually get the full gist of what it is.
The awareness is a very powerful thing. The minute if someone knows something, rope in a friend, tell a friend, and don't just keep it to yourself, because again, $20,000 and still going strong. Gerald, you were actually roped in by someone as well. If you want to find out more about 50 for 50, which is a youth-led charity initiative that identifies young change makers to raise funds for lesser-known charities in Singapore, you can head on down to their website, www.50for50.sg. That's www.50for50.sg. Also, if you want to find out a bit more on social media, Facebook and Instagram, you can also search for the same thing on those platforms as well. And for more information on the St. Andrew's Cathedral Home for the Aged, www.livingstreams.org.sg. Bertrand Wee, Gerald Tay, and Pearl Sim are my guests on the program tonight. Thanks, guys, so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Man is a knot into which relationships are tied, but nothing comes between us. On 938 Live.